guys and girls, and welcome to episode 62 of the TechCrunch Rumour Podcast. No, sorry. It's the FReality Podcast. I do feel like it's the TechCrunch Rumour Podcast over the last couple of weeks, but I digress. We'll carry on. This is a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show, live streamed every Saturday on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitch. You can tune into the show live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in central US. You can also check out the audio version, which is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on Anchor. And if you want to leave us a message on Anchor, we can play that live during a future episode, and you can ask us a question, which would be really cool. So maybe go and check out the Anchor app and do that. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback during the show, please put them in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. But let me introduce you to the team. First up, he's a Gordon Freeman lookalike and legendary VR Twitch streamer. It's ZimTalk5. How you doing, man? You all right?
Gordon Freeman, huh?
Gordon Freeman. I was researching today, which we'll be talking more about later. I was thinking that actually looks like Zim. He just needs a pair of glasses. He's Gordon Freeman.
You know, the sad thing is, once upon a time, I went through an old box of glasses that my dad had when he was like younger in his working career, and I found a pair of glasses. Ones with, you know, on the ear that loop around behind the ear, like they're actually curved. And I took these. I think I was 14. God, I took these into school and I wore them the whole day because I thought wearing glasses was cool. So there you go.
You've never been bullied in your life so much.
Yeah, it was. I don't think they even said anything to me. I think it was that bad. So that was. But yeah, good week so far, Mike. Yeah. Soul crushing maybe, but other than that, it's been a good week.
Other than that, good week. So next up, this guy. He's been playing with himself all week. And by that, I mean echoes of himself in transpose. It's, of course, Rowdy Guy. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm in a different location again. You know, I like to switch around from time to time. I've actually had people say about me that I look like Gordon Freeman as well when I still wore glasses. Even my girlfriend even said that I look like Gordon Freeman when I had like those big glasses on.
Yeah.
But I've been bullied so much in my life that I got laser surgery, you know.
That's the way to sort it out. Yeah, maybe you should have like a cosplay off you and Zim, who can be the best Gordon Freeman.
Yeah, both Gordon Freeman.
It's a Gordon off. We could.
Yeah, Nathan can be a head crab.
No, he's the G-man. He's the G-man. We could totally do this, guys. We could totally do a Half-Life themed podcast.
Let's say if there is something getting announced soon, then we should dress up, all of us, to celebrate.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
With a God of War like crossover, I guess.
So next up, he's been fighting Octopus, saving a school, and commanding an army of soldiers, all in a week's work for Nathy. How you doing, man? You all right?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of VR games. Yes. Yeah. It's crazy. Also, if I can suggest a outfit for Mike, he should be that doctor, you know, the one that gets eaten by the head crabs. I don't know his name. What is his name again?
Beverly Crusher. I think it's Beverly Crusher.
Wait. Is this now Nathy saying he wants to eat Mike?
Yeah.
Well, pretty much, yes. The one with the glasses, you know, that is in every part of Half-Life.
That dies every time.
Yeah, exactly. That's you, Mike.
Thanks for that. Well, if you didn't know who I was, other than that scientist that gets eaten by head crabs in Half-Life, I'm Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis. And in today's episode, we've got a super busy show for you. We're going to be talking about the leaked Valve VR headset. Has Half-Life 3 been confirmed? Well, stay tuned to find out. Then we're going to be talking about a newly announced Shadow VR headset. It's competition for the Quest with this new 6 Degrees of Freedom standalone headset using the Vive Wave platform. And then finally, we're going to be rounding up the show with Beat Saber for PSVR. PlayStation owners can finally saber some beats, but why is the rest of the community so unhappy about it? Well, you'll find out soon enough. So let's find out what everyone's been playing and their highlight of the week this week. And of course, let's kick it over to Zim first to see what he's been up to.
The Pseudo G-Man. So Pseudo G-Man has been working on quite a few. I finally got my PSVR stream PC working again. Those who have seen Zim's casting couch, so I was very happy about that. Audio is, for anyone who does live broadcasting, like you'd think it'd be the video, but it's always the fucking audio that mucks you up. And so that was my achievement of the week. But the highlight, I would say, in terms of VR content has to be, and it's kind of an odd one because there's a few good titles that I've touched, including Astrobot. But I'll actually pick Hold the World from David Attenborough, because I found that the photogrammetry that they did in actually materializing David Attenborough, who's a nature presenter who's worked with the BBC for, I don't know, 60 years or something, in front of you in actual London venues, and actually seeing and scaling full-on fossils and seeing these models come to life in the most beautifully detailed animations. I mean, I know it's relatively short and you can probably buzz through it in an hour, but the way they did it and the fact that you can, even David Attenborough himself in front of you, you can like look at different angles at the guy. I mean, this guy is probably not much longer for the planet, I'm sorry to say. And when he passes on, it's great to know that he's there and you can like sit down with him and listen to him talk about the thing he's passionate about. And just amazing. I was blown away by it.
I haven't thought about it that way yet, but that's indeed true that you can now become like completely immortalized in virtual reality by using photogrammetry and like voice recordings, and like that's actually a really, really neat feature.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
It's so different than video.
I actually visited the team that made it, Dream Reality Interactive. They're based in London, and they're also making Arca's Path. And I met the lead of the team there, Dave Ranyard, and he actually got to hang out with David Attenborough for like the week whilst they were shooting all the photogrammetry for that video. He said he was a fascinating guy. You know, he said it was like a dream come true sitting there at breakfast opposite one of the legendary David Attenborough, because no matter what that guy says, it sounds fascinating, you know?
Yeah,
100%.
It's that accent. Yeah.
Well, it's not just that's just English accent, Roddy. But sorry.
You don't sound that way.
I'm not English. Jeez, that's just no, I don't know. The guy is a walking library.
Yes.
You know, and the amount that he knows, the detailed amount that he knows. You know, but someone was sitting there watching as we were running this show, and it was the thing they said just echoed with me. It was like, I didn't know I was going to learn something today. And like when you realize you learn, I don't know, 30 facts bang bang machine gunned into your head like in that short of time, and you just go, wow, how small is my world that I haven't considered a trilobite from 6500 BC in my day to day, but now I've heard about this and thought about it, and it's really intriguing. And so the thing that I am reminded of, but I forget, played loads of different games, and then you hit an educational content title, and you just go, wow, this is actually it. This is what it's all about. Like, this is how people are going to educate themselves going forward. So.
Absolutely. And is it right that there's a part in the experience, because I didn't try it all when I demoed it in London, but there's a part where David Attenborough actually meets himself in virtual reality. Is that right?
Oh, so the only thing that I saw, I did the kind of 9 different unlockable bits that you could do, and then he runs during an experience with one of these like gigantic eggs. He actually runs a clip of himself from when he was like in his 20s, which is really interesting to see, because I've never seen a young David Attenborough, and even seeing him, as I said, I've never met him in such a personal way. I've seen his face before on various programs like Planet Earth, but I don't know about the one you're talking about. It sounds more like Multiplicity. Yeah,
it was like a David Attenborough Inception, but it just looked really cool. Is this experience free or is it paid for?
I believe it's paid for, but if you're a Sky TV owner, I think you can get it for free.
That's right.
Didn't, thank you, Oculus. I didn't get a chance.
Owner, but it's only something in the UK, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Sky's kind of your basic vanilla TV service that you don't want to get broadband from.
You said how long is the experience again, roughly?
I think it was about an hour that it took us to kind of go through. It's kind of like 9 different segments, but it's all really well done. I mean, the environment around you actually deconstructs and reconstructs itself in a way that was really impressive. I don't know how they managed to do that. They did you don't see any evidence of cameras or whatever, so they did a really great job of covering up the way they recorded Attenborough. The only thing that I would say is, like, if you're on PSVR, you'll be very familiar with the I'm out of range. So you get that, actually. They did that to restrict you because obviously the photogrammetry equipment could only capture him from about a 50-degree angle. So outside of that bound, you can't just walk around behind him. I tried it.
Right. And what was the name of it again? Sorry, I missed it again.
Hold the World. I thought it was a little bit I was like, oh, this is like a Hodor moment, but no, it's
Oh,
actually Attenborough. Yeah.
Genius. Genius. Okay, so let's find out how Rowdy's been this week playing with himself in virtual reality. How's it been for you, dude?
Yeah, I've played actually a lot of games. Like Transpose was indeed one of them. But I got back into like some older titles again as well. I played The Land of Amara, which I highlighted last week. I played some Crete. I found another new level in Accounting Plus, which I didn't even know that was there up until like people like were commenting on it. And then the thing I actually wanted to highlight this week is that I got the most fun that I had in virtual reality this week was that I got to show my Oculus Go to a person who has never tried real virtual reality yet. She used like some cardboard experiences, but nothing really as extensive as the Oculus Go. And I downloaded some apps like virtual reality. I showed her Phase of Fears because she was a horror fan. I said that's a mistake because you have never tried it in virtual reality. Oh, but I like horror movies, she said. I said, yeah, I know, but it's not the same thing. I like horror movies too. And she really screamed. She screamed so loud that her mom came downstairs to check what was going on.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. She screamed really hard there. And then, it was just a lot of fun to be seeing someone like have like their very first experience in virtual reality with the Oculus Go, and she couldn't wait to like try out like other headsets as well. So yeah, it's a very nice thing to still be able to do that. Yeah,
Absolutely. I feel like demoing VR to people that have never tried it before is such a magical moment because you get to witness that oh wow moment, and it's guaranteed almost every time that they're going to have that experience and they're going to be amazed by it, and then they walk away truly understanding what virtual reality is and what it can offer them. It's like you've converted someone. It's such a cool experience for both people, for you and them.
Especially because it sounds like the future when you talk about it as well. Like you say, oh yeah, you can buy a headset and then connect with someone like over the other side of the planet, but actually have that feeling of presence that they're next to you in a room, and you can watch a movie together. And that's just like mind-boggling for a lot of people, not only for her. But I really like that.
I wonder how long it's going to be until a BBC crew makes it into the middle of the of like Latin America, or South America or something, in the middle of the jungle, and they bring a VR headset and they're like, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." And then all the spears come out and it just becomes a bloodbath. But I would watch that. Just saying.
Okay. So, hopefully you've got something lighter to talk about, Nathy.
Oh yeah, first of all, in the chat we have some people who also played a bunch of VR titles. We have Hussein, who says that he played From Other Suns, Echo VR, I Expect You to Die. Steve has been playing Windlands 2, Skyrim VR, and PokerStars VR. That's a new one. And he also said that if anyone hasn't tried Skyrim VR with a Dragonborn Speak Naturally mod, you are missing out. I didn't even know that was a thing, but that sounds really cool. And then we have
That's
Eric.
what they also use for Elite Dangerous.
Yes, yeah, and Star Trek 2, I think. Right?
I don't know if that's the same, but yeah, they do use voice control. I don't know if it's the same one, but
okay.
So Eric played Transpose and Eclipse of Edge of Light, and then last but not least we have Brian Foster, who hasn't been playing that much. He's like getting into game development right now with VR.
Nice.
So
well, congratulations and good luck. Yeah.
Yes. So I played a lot of stuff. I just rushed through everything at the moment. There's so much coming out because I mean it's almost Christmas apparently, and the developers now start to launch their titles because I don't know if it's the best time of the year to sell your game. Maybe it is, or maybe not, because if everyone does it at the same time, then it's getting a little problematic, I would say. But I try to kind of like play games for at least like an hour and then go to the next one. So I played Transpose, I played Derasane on the PlayStation VR, I played Tin Hearts, and there's another one. I think it was Eclipse of Light, right? Yeah. So if I could highlight one, I would say I would go for Derasane because it's one that has not been given that much attention, I would say. Well, it's a very interesting puzzler, beautiful, really slow. Like it's a new kind of like puzzle title, I would say, with new mechanics I haven't seen before. So basically what you do in this game is you are a fairy, and you need to operate within a school where children believe in fairies, and you need to constantly surprise them in ways and leave messages behind. So it's super magical. If you ever want to be a fairy and help kids out, then this is the one for you. It does get like a little bit dark later down the road, because this game has been made by the developers who also worked on Dark Souls and Bloodborne from Software. And for some reason, it escalates into a total different story you would never expect. So yeah, if you are interested in that, then go check it out. Also, if you are a big fan of Bloodborne, there are a lot of Easter eggs in the game that hint to maybe another maybe sequel.
So
of
if you like Bloodborne and you really wanted to be a fairy as a kid, then this is
Yes.
exactly the title for you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's what it is.
When you said it started to get dark later on in the game, I had visions of the fairy just like collecting like kids' teeth out of their heads, because like the tooth fairy.
No. So I actually Googled this, because in the description they say fairy in a way that I haven't seen before. So apparently, after looking this up, there are two different fairies. You have like the happy ones, and then you have these like dark ones that you can also with the horns and stuff like that.
Oh.
And they visit people at night, and
Yeah.
it's kind of creepy. So that's kind of what it
Fawns,
is. But it
no?
starts
Isn't that a fawn?
exactly like a mix of that, like a hybrid. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's super super cool. So if you if you are interested in that, then that's it.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about this week, and one isn't a game, one's a movie, because I had a sort of morning off this week and went to the cinema, because I've not been to the cinema in ages, but I thought I'd go and check out Overlord at the cinema. And I don't know if you're familiar with this film. It came out just recently. It's by it's produced by J.J. Abrams, who also produced.
I actually missed that movie because I was supposed to go and watch it on the Halloween night, but it was like the third movie in the row, and I already saw two, and I was like, I'm just too tired. I'm going home, but I really want to check that one out. So
Oh, mate, you should definitely go and check it out. Yeah, you should definitely check it out. And it is kind of game related, because it reminded me of Wolfenstein. It's almost like the story of Wolfenstein in a movie, because it's based in World War II, around the sort of just before the D-Day landings in Normandy. And some American troops are sent over to take down a comms tower. And they go and take down this comms tower, but underneath the comms tower, they find that the Nazis are experimenting with corpses and turning them into like superhuman zombies.
Of course you are.
It becomes like super bloody, super gory. It's like a hardcore 18 rated movie. But it's probably one of the best movies I've seen in the cinema for a while. So if you're like, yeah, I would say it's that good. Like, I've seen a lot of stuff at the cinema, but nothing that really I enjoyed as much as this one just recently anyway.
I'm a terrible person, but I'm waiting for the VR punchline here.
It was just gaming related, because it's like Wolfenstein.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
but it wasn't as bad as like the Doom movie, right?
Oh, no. Like 100 times better than the Doom movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the first like 15 minutes of this movie alone are just so visceral and dramatic. It reminds you of like the D-Day landings from like Saving Private Ryan, but in a different way.
Yep.
And it's super cleverly done. So yeah, go and check out Overlord at the cinema if you want to go and check out a film. But in terms of VR game that I want to highlight is definitely Wrench. It is my standout game of the week so far. It just totally blew me away. We've talked about it previously on an episode of the show. We touched about it coming soon, and we highlighted their trailer, which did like a really cool time lapse of an engine being built.
Yep.
And basically, the devs released a free demo of it on Oculus Home, so you can go and check that out right now. And basically, the demo gives you a small taster of what the full game is going to offer. And the demo, you're able to build an engine piece by piece from scratch, whilst following some narrated instructions. So you've got a guide to lead you through it if you have no idea what to do with engines whatsoever.
That's not a lug wrench. No, the other lug wrench.
Exactly. But it took me like an hour and 20 minutes to finish the demo, and I was thinking in my mind.
Do you know anything about cars?
The thing is, I know a little bit about cars. I would no way say I'm a mechanic, but I'm familiar with the terms, the different parts and stuff. But I did obviously use the step-by-step instructions they provided to build the engine. But you've got to build it correctly, otherwise it won't work in the end.
So another question, quick one, Mike.
Sure.
Which was tougher, building this demo engine or the water block with your GTX, new GTX card?
Good question. Because both of them required instructions and I needed to follow them. So yeah, I would say par for par.
All right.
Equally as difficult, but equally as rewarding as well, I would say.
This sounds like an ad.
Yeah. But it was a super polished experience, and like I said, it took me an hour and a half almost. And I was thinking, for the amount of content here and the amount of polish that is in this little experience, and it's free, it's more content and more polished than most of the paid experiences that I've tried on the Oculus Store recently.
I got a question too, and I think this is something that you might highlight yourself, but I want to ask it now already because I'm curious. Do you feel like you know the engine now? Did you know more about it? Did you learn something?
Yes, and this is what I was getting to exactly. I actually felt like if I go through that demo 3 times, right? I reckon by the end of that I could piece an actual like MX5 stroke Miata in the US engine together without any instructions. I reckon I could do it.
That's awesome, because that's what I like about like the non-gaming side of virtual reality. It's just like the possibility of learning something up to such a level that you become an expert in it.
Yeah,
by doing something like that. I mean, you can extend this to so many platforms, from like operations to like mechanical stuff to engineering to. I think that's really neat. Yeah.
But it's the way the parts feel. You know, each individual part has its own like feel to it, and it looks like used or worn a little bit, which gives it that rugged look. And then you've got to assemble it all together with actual bolts. And then when you assemble it with a ratchet, you've got to choose the right torque setting on the ratchet to torque it to the correct torque.
Right.
And just like I mentioned in last week's episode about red matter having that really great tactile feeling and feeling of weight, and that you really need force to move something, they've used that same magic in this. So when you torque a bolt, your hand keeps moving, but the wrench stays moving slowly in time with the tightness of the bolt, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to explain, but visually it works.
Virtual resistance, I think, is the kind of term.
That's a great way of describing it. Exactly. Virtual resistance.
It would just be cool if you see this like extended across like a range of companies or brands. Like, for example, if you want to, I don't know, you buy like an IKEA closet, you get like a QR code and you put it on, you watch a VR video, or even more like extended to like when you, I don't know, when you buy like a car, you get instead of an instruction manual, you get like the full like detailed kind of thing of your car linked to Amazon, so you can buy like the stuff that you need to buy or whatever, and see how it's all been put together in virtual reality.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And the developers, believe it or not, it's only a 2-person team. A 2-person team created this.
Looks really
good.
And
I think that what they've achieved here is absolutely amazing. But like you said, Rowdy, I'd love them to be in a position to license the game engine that they've made, like with all these physics and mechanics in it, and then license it to companies to make training demonstrations for planes or boiler servicing or whatever it might be, IKEA, for example. I think that would be a great idea for them to make some money on this amazing engine that they've made.
I want it in a sim game. I want it in a sim game like an Arma or something, where you actually need a mechanic, and your Jeep or whatever breaks down. You're like, Mike, I need a mechanic. Come over here and refit my engine. You know, it's like, how cool would that be? Actually using real life skills while you're gaming. You know?
Yeah, that would be so cool. But of course, this is just a small taster. You can just build the engine in this demo, but in the full game, you'll be able to build a full car. And then also you're going to be able to service customers' cars as well. And they've included this great mechanic in one of their dev videos where if you raise the customer's car off the ground, you can go underneath it. And then if a part's not working correctly, you can rattle it with your hand to see if the bushes either side of it are worn. Like the attention to detail is just incredible.
That's so cool.
So I'm super excited about the final release, but I thought I'd mention that because it was such a standout experience.
And it's something different. And it's at the moment, like we said last time as well, it's very popular on YouTube and on like gaming, that like those like simulation experiences. It started maybe off with like, you know, the Euro Truck Simulator kind of things, but it extended so far into like train driving, farming simulators, and like House Flipper, and how's it all called? Like, you know, Repair Your PC game or whatever. I don't know the name.
It's funny because someone mentioned House Flipper in one of the comments on the video, and they said you would love that game if they made a VR version of it. Just like knocking down walls, painting.
Yeah, but it would be awesome.
So much fun. So yeah, that's what we've all been up to this week. So let's move into some quick news. And first up, I just want to give a shout out to a dude from the community, and that is GamertagVR, because as we speak right now, he is in the middle of a 24-hour charity live stream. And for those of you that have live streamed VR content before, like, you know, it takes its toll on you. Like, VR is tiring, so doing a 24-hour live stream is no small feat. You know, it's
After
going to
2
be
hours, I'm dead. It's over and done with.
it's going to be super challenging for him, but you know, he's doing it for an amazing cause, which is for cancer research. So if you want to go and check out his stream, you can just search for him, GamertagVR. He normally does like PSVR streams, so you can go and check him out. I think he's playing Star Trek Bridge Crew last time I checked, and you can give him a shout out, give him some moral support, and maybe donate if you're interested in adding to the charity. But I just wanted to give him a little shout out because me and Zim met him at EGX Rezzed, and he was a super nice guy. So I thought I'd give him a little shout out.
Definitely.
So next up is some Rift hardware stats. So this week, Upload reported on their website that they reported that 20% of Rift owners have 3 sensors or more. And I was just like, wait a minute, that sounds really low. But I thought, maybe thinking more about it, that's probably about right. But I don't know about you guys. In my testing, I've always found that 3 sensors are probably the best. Like, that's the sweet spot for me.
down.
I actually had 2 sensors up to last week.
Oh,
Really?
you did?
Only?
Yeah.
Wow.
Only 2 sensors
How
up
do
to
you
last
feel
week.
now that you've got 3?
It's not that much of an improvement, I would say. I mean, it is
Okay.
better, especially when I'm docking.
Yes.
I notice it to be better. Although my setup is not optimal, so I could probably like optimize it better. But since I actually had the feeling that because I was in a larger space, and I had to like break everything down every time, the 2 sensors were easier for me. I actually had them just in a forward-facing position, so when I turned around, I usually lost a bit of tracking. But when I got to my my smaller space, I noticed that because I bring them closer together, they overlap more, and I have a little bit more difficulties when I turn around. So then the
Right.
3rd sensor actually improved it a bit. Yeah.
Right. I'd love to know in the chat as well, like how many sensors you've got. Because I've tested with 2, I've tested with 3, I've even tested with 4. And I've always found that 3 was kind of the sweet spot because 4 is just overkill and takes up another USB port, which are precious, as you'll know if you run a VR system.
But on the other side, most titles on Oculus Home are front-facing ones and
That
not
is true.
360 ones.
And that's probably for that very reason. But I also heard out there from the community that a lot of the community have figured out a way to get decent room scale tracking just using 2
Yeah.
sensors by putting them diagonally opposite each
that
other.
is possible. Yeah.
So you could do that, but it was interesting to get these official stats, and they actually came from Oculus directly because they've got an information page now which gives you all the hardware stats of everyone that is a Rift owner. So I've got some interesting other stats if you want to hear them. So the top.
You said it. I was
Shut up,
thinking
Rowdy.
it. Go
Well,
on.
you don't have a choice.
So
So
before
listen-
we do that,
Sorry, go on.
we have Steve saying that he's using 3 sensors. Factory Live is using 3. Lotto is using 4. Bryant has 3. Tauk is using 2. And
I mean, they will get
that's it,
phased
so-
out later, probably. No.
Of course,
That-
of course. You know, especially if the rumors of the Rift S are to be believed, and you know they're going to move to inside-out tracking in favor of accessibility rather than performance, for sure. But yeah, in terms of these hardware specs and you know details we get from Oculus now, in terms of the top CPU, apparently 8% of all Rift users have an Intel i7 6700K, which is the same processor that I have actually.
Show off.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was way lower.
I would have thought it was lower as well. Yeah, but
how many percent?
8%.
8%.
But the trouble with processors and processor stats, I would say, from having participated in the Valve survey for about the last 10 years, is that people will lump into a particular CPU. The CPU, as you said, it's 8%. It's not 58% or something like that. I mean, it's so graded. But the ones that are like popular, that are like supported by a PC magazine, you'll find like loads of people have that CPU, that specific one, out of a range of about 20 different offerings. So you get this kind of bumpy chart.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think the 6700K is a good bang for your buck CPU, really. But in terms of GPUs, it's fairly interesting as well. 16.8% of all Rift users have a GTX 1080, which I thought is pretty high. But it seems like predominantly most people are in Intel and NVIDIA rather than AMD camp. But another stat is 44.5% of Rift owners have 8 gigs of RAM. and almost 96% of users have touch controllers, which is fairly to be.
Wow.
You know,
That's more than I was expecting.
really,
Yeah.
you thought it?
96%. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
released separately, so a lot of
Yeah.
people had to like buy them separately. That you don't see that often for like a system that doesn't include everything. That's impressive.
Well, the thing is for me, like, and maybe it is why I think the number sounds high to me. But I've got a good friend who bought the Rift like in conjunction with me and just refused to spend any more money on the equipment and didn't want to get a touch controller. But like without the touch controllers, I mean, it's the system seller in my opinion.
Although in a way it does make sense because initially the Rift did not include the touch controllers, and then the price was a little bit more expensive if you had to add them with the Vive, I think. So it makes sense maybe back then that people would buy the Vive for the all-inclusive system. But then later the Rift bundle came with the touch controllers that was way less expensive than the Vive, and probably a lot of people like jumped on the boat back then.
Yeah.
And therefore have the Rift controllers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then they say that 18.1% have 3 sensors, which I thought was an interesting stat, but I was surprised by. But especially because many people in the chat are saying they've got 3 or 4. But yeah, all you guys have 3 sensors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually have like a 4th one, but I never.
Yeah, never use it.
You don't really need it. But the other thing I was going to say is, I think that probably in those numbers, for instance, they're probably being suppressed by business or demo station users who are buying Rifts, because there's loads of sales, right? Like, so when you go to demo, when you go to the convention, right? What actually happens? Developers will buy Rifts there as opposed to shipping them in with them. If you're trying to do that in bulk, so you're like, oh, I'll just get, I'll get 10 setups, and I think that the extra camera being missing could be suppressed by buyers like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. But if you are interested in picking up a 3rd sensor, they're about 60 quid in the UK or $60. In my opinion, I think it's a worthy upgrade, but it's all up to you and depending on what games you play, I guess.
Yeah.
But moving on to some next quick news, we're going to be talking about a VR festival held in VR. So this is kind of interesting. It's going to be called Futurelands, and it's hosted by High Fidelity. And if you're not familiar with High Fidelity, it's an open social VR platform that you can download either from Steam or directly from their website. And it's a bit like AltSpace or VR Chat in that it's a platform for people to meet up, socialize, and share experiences together. But they're doing this sort of VR festival, which is going to be held on Saturday, the 17th of November, so next Saturday. And they're going to be hosting it from midday to 4 p.m. PST, which means that it's going to be around 10 p.m. to midnight here in the UK. The festival is free to attend and will have live music, an avatar contest, a marketplace, raffles, and a live theatre performance.
Wow.
Yeah, so they've got a lot going on, and I think this sounds super interesting. Like, I like the idea of festivals or events being held in VR. I've never actually been to one, but I'd be really interested to go and see what it's all about. But unfortunately,
is that like a pre-drinking party as well? Like, before you go to the festival?
Yeah. Like, you should all buy like tequila, and then every time they say something on stage, that you've got to do a shot.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do they not have overpriced beer yet in VR? Because if you don't have that, then it's not really a festival.
Bring your own snacks. But I was wondering, have you guys tried High Fidelity before?
So close. I've installed it and I haven't because I've done it like every other social app, and the last one I did was the Wave VR. But High Fidelity, again, it's meant to be kind of Sonic. In other words, you have these experiences, and I've been always attracted to it. But I'm really interested in what their USP is. Like, what's the unique selling point of High Fidelity over the other social apps? It's such a teeth race,
And there's so many of them now. Like Sansa is another one that I didn't mention. They're all kind of fighting to be this kind of oasis of VR, where you can all meet up and hang out. But I think VR Chat probably is still by far the most popular one, right?
Or Rec Room, maybe.
Rec Room,
yeah. You can count Rec Room in that space. I'm just, you know what's coming. The behemoth is coming. Facebook VR of some nature is gonna happen at some point. They wouldn't have done a play for buying Oculus if they weren't gonna do that at some point. So.
Or Oculus themselves, maybe.
Yeah. That just mean that ecosystem.
Yeah. Because actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I recently wrote a tweet about that as well. When I got back into like the Oculus Home, and just like common home and that feeling of like you have like your own little establishment. And I had that like that city set up.
Yeah.
You have like this city environment, and I really wanted to like, I wish I could like just like go out, take the elevator now, go down and like, go and explore the city. But they construct it in such a way that you get that feeling immediately when you go in there. And I think that's so amazing how they do that. The environments really look great.
You touch on a... Go on,
I think Nathy gets that kind of vibe as well when he goes and visits his home, Oculus home.
Yeah, it feels very personal.
Yeah, surrounded by bold men.
Exactly.
Well,
If you ever want to visit my home, just add me on, the Oculus platform, and you can discover it for yourself.
You'll be disturbed, put it that way.
But to me, I don't know if anyone else got hooked into it, but like, when GTA first, Grand Theft Auto first incorporated property management, where you could like buy a house and upgrade, and then have a flat. Like, I want that in VR. Like what Rowdy just described. Like have a cityscape, or even a just a mapped landscape city with an out like a forest or whatever, so you could be city life or rural if you wanted. But like to be able to like somehow work for digital currency to earn a place. I mean, this sounds totally like Second Life equivalent, but that would be really interesting if one particularly big horse wins that race. Then you can imagine that being quite pervasive with gamers. Like,
and lucrative.
Yeah, for everyone. I know that Sony and Space are one of those kind of companies that are trying to develop virtual reality real estate. It's a thing that's happening, but like you say, it needs someone really huge to really push it forward, I think. But very interested indeed if you're interested in attending an event in VR. But the other bit of news I want to talk about very quickly before we jump into releases is Population 1. Now, if you're not aware of this game, we talked about it very briefly on a previous episode, but it's a battle royale game that's being developed by Big Box Studio. They previously made Smashbox Arena, which was kind of like an arena-based shooter. But they've recently raised 6.4 million in funding for this title. And, it just kind of got me wondering, because we talked on last week's episode at the very end about sort of, there's not many applications that are really worth coming back to and back to and back to. And I wonder if something like this, Population 1, could be something like the Fortnite of VR, if it's super polished and has all this kind of repeat reward system and a reason to keep coming back, especially because of the amount of money that's being invested in it. Like it's going to be like a polished experience by all accounts.
I don't know.
What do you do different?
You guys...
For me, that's always difficult because it's become the Fortnite in VR. Fortnite pretty much revolutionized the entire battle royale kind of thing is not new. It's something that's been around for like ages, and it got maybe picked up again by playing on Battlegrounds, but then Fortnite took that concept and extended it into so many different kind of things. Like because Fortnite is not popular because of the battle royale kind of thing; it's because of the skins and like the little dances and like all that other stuff they added to it. So it's more of a social kind of experience and like bragging rights that you can purchase and stuff, but. To become like the Fortnite of VR, you need to be, I think, very, very original in the way that you approach this kind of thing. And I've never played Population 1, but I don't know what they really do new. Like, what is the really new kind of thing except for being, the battle royale kind of thing of VR?
Yeah, it's not the sales pitch though. Like the sales pitch here and why they just got 6 million, right? That's hungry angel investors looking for something that, because if you look at the trend, right, Mike, if you look at the amount of battle royale games that have sold really fucking well, there's 6 or 8 of them. Like there's 6 or 8 that have done like crazy amount of turnover. So this to me is just a room of angel investors who probably aren't that well, up on what happens with multiplayer VR games right now. But and they're chucking their money at it, going maybe it's a chance.
Yeah. They are releasing a single player element to this, so you can fight with bots and practice that way. But they've got a mechanic called free motion where you can basically climb up any object within the game world. You can fly off buildings. You can build like you can in Fortnite, so that's kind of the comparison.
Kind of like Stormland, isn't it? Like that you can climb on those surfaces. Yeah, because and that felt really good. Like having done that at OC5, that was really actually way better than I thought it would feel. So if they bring it in, it'd be good.
The most fun I've had in a battle royale game in VR though, I think it's still Rec Room.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
I still like that one the most.
Super polished. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun, that game. But in Population 1, you'll have a 1 square kilometer world that you can go and explore, which is interesting. The game is still being developed right now, and there's no word on a release window yet other than sometime in 2019. There is a private beta that you can sign up to be a part of if you're interested, but you'll have to sign an NDA and you won't be able to talk about it or record any video content.
Yeah.
But you can go and check that out on the Big Box VR website if you're interested.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is that. And let's talk about some game releases then. We've got a big one. Well, we've got 2 big ones, actually. First up is Echo Combat. A lot of people have been waiting for this one for a long time, especially fans of Echo Arena. But this one's going to be a paid-for experience. I didn't realize that initially when they sort of said this was coming, because obviously Echo Arena launched alongside Lone Echo and has been free ever since then. And I think there was a hint at the very beginning that they were going to switch it to a paid model after a few months, but they decided to keep it free, and I'd imagine that was supported by Oculus. So, but this new update, which will form part of the Echo VR app, because that's kind of how they separated it. You've got Lone Echo, and then you've now got Echo VR, which replaced the Echo Arena app. And then within that, you can either play Echo Arena or Echo Combat now. But I'd imagine you have to buy it as an in-app purchase or something like that.
Okay.
I think that's going to be the case. I'm not 100% sure, by the way. But it launches on Thursday, the 15th of November, and is going to be available for $7.99 in British pounds, $9.99 in US dollars. Now, I don't know if any of you guys got to try out any of the beta weekends or anything like that for Echo Combat. No. I wasn't a massive fan of Echo Arena, only because like competitive multiplayer isn't my bag. But this one does interest me more, being a bit of a shooter and having this kind of payload mechanic, a bit like Overwatch. And it kind of made me think of what you said previously, Zim, about Firewall, in that if you want to try out this as a new user, get in while it's hot and early, before everyone starts getting super good at the game and starts just wrecking you straight away.
Yeah, it's obviously gonna apply to this as well. And it's the same for honestly, it's the same for the majority of multiplayer VR games. Sometimes, and Nathan said this a couple of weeks ago, sometimes you have to wait for enough traction in the community, like a month or something, before there's enough people in there for it to really get fun. And actually, I would have said that the first couple of weekends, like with From Other Suns, wasn't great, but a month and a half in, or a month in, like chock full, you know. And of course, this weekend's, was free. So anyway.
Yeah, but I think it looks really cool. I love the fact, that they've done all these skins and different emotes now and stuff in Echo Arena. I think the game's starting to look really nice. So it'll be interesting to see if, alongside the launch, we get more information about other game modes and other bits and pieces that they've added over time.
The only thing that bothered me a little bit with the competitive side of like Echo Arena was the camera angles. They were not properly done, I think, because it was very hard to orientate yourself. When you look at the event, because I watched like a few of the events on OC5 where they had a competition as well, and I think that's like one of the major strengths of like competitive games like Onward, where you can see like how the camera angles, like they're really well orchestrated, they're very well done, they're personally moved. But with Echo Arena, I had the feeling that it was sometimes so much change over the place, and like because it goes up and down, there's no gravity and that kind of stuff. That's like a lot harder to like get into the scene that you really want to see without like disorienting the viewer. So I'm actually curious if they changed anything about that as well.
Yeah. So were they using third-person cameras like they did in Onward?
Both. So third and first person, but it was mostly because like people like they go up and down and front and right, and then it gets really confusing because the colors also, they don't discern that much between the two players, that I sometimes had a hard time like just like figuring out to what side is the guy going now. So
yeah, it'll be interesting, especially because with the payload you've got a fixed track where the payload has to go. Maybe they could fix cameras along the way, especially for a competitive event, and film it that way. But that's an interesting point, definitely.
It sounds so I was just going to say with the payload piece, it sounds so much like Team Fortress in terms of its design. If anyone has ever played multiplayer Team Fortress,
the Halloween version or the casual one?
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, those updates and mods.
Hey, Nathan representing Team Fortress.
That's a funny coincidence, by the way.
He's OG. He's OG.
I am, dude.
Just be careful. Do not wear that shirt when you're playing Star Trek Bridge Crew.
Oh yeah.
He's got a
Although
red.
we both,
he's got a
we
red
both know
shirt.
that we're noobs and probably deserve a shirt like that, me included. So yeah, that's Echo Combat coming out on Thursday the 15th. Go and check that one out. And then the second one is one of my favorite games of the year so far, and it's coming to Steam, which I'm super happy about, and that is Windlands 2. As we know, it's been on Oculus for a while now. It's one of my favorite games of the year so far, and it's going to be releasing on Steam on Friday the 16th of November. So that means that Vive owners and Windows MR owners can now experience what it's like to swing through the Windlands themselves.
And find our Easter eggs.
And find our Easter eggs, because we've all got Easter eggs in the game, all of us,
I still
including
don't even
the
know where my
podcast.
own Easter egg is.
I think I found mine. I found my own, but I didn't find anyone else's. But I do know of people that have made comments saying that they found yours and the FReality one as well.
Ooh.
So yeah, if you want to go and find some Easter eggs, take some pictures and let us know. We'd love to see them.
I found about four or five actually in the game. I still have yet to.
Wow.
I've yet to find myself. There's a. I'm still looking. So.
I love that. This sounds like really dramatic. I'm yet to find myself in
It
that
does.
game.
I found. You know where I found Frank at the bottom of a hole.
Bless him.
Bless him.
Right. So I think this we don't have any indication of pricing on Steam just yet, but if the Oculus pricing is to be sort of indicative, then it's going to be around $22.99 in British pounds, $29.99 in US dollars. I would say it's definitely worth it. So let's talk about some juicy news that is going to get everyone triggered,
Wait,
get everyone hyped.
Wait, one more release.
Sure.
We have Red Matter also on Steam now.
Yes, that is very true. That is very true. Yeah.
But Mike already played that one.
Already played that
he
one,
finished
yeah.
it, after
Yeah.
we asked them to do that.
No more forfeits for me.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let's talk about the news from Valve, because it's not from Valve, it's actually from Upload. But it feels like we just talk about leaks on the show now. We don't have facts anymore. We just speculate on rumors now. So
WikiLeaks.
at least it's not from TechCrunch. So be thankful for that. But in all seriousness, Upload VR have done a good job this week, I think, in some investigative journalism. And, instead of just giving us these rumors, we've actually got some evidence in terms of photos, which we didn't get with the TechCrunch stuff about the Rift S. All it was speculation, whereas at least we've got some pretty compelling evidence in terms of these photos that we've got of the headsets. And
For part of it.
we'll hopefully try and show you some of those photos. So Valve have been public over the years about developing Knuckles controllers. We've seen them, devs have got them, we're talking to devs that have got them, and we've now seen videos on YouTube of people getting hands-on with them and trying out this new demo that Valve created to show off the sort of benefits of using a controller like the Knuckles, because it's got like pressure-sensitive grip and all this kind of stuff, which is really interesting. But what we've never really seen or heard about before is Valve actually making their own VR headset, and that's pretty much what we got confirmation of yesterday in this article from Upload. And I've been studying these images and zooming into them and trying to get as much information out of them as I possibly can. So I've got some little nuggets of information for you.
It's a Raspberry Pi, isn't it? I knew it.
It's made by Raspberry Pi.
Arduino.
Exactly.
It's Arduino.
Yeah. So in these photos, there's like 4 photos that were leaked, and in one of them there was a computer screen in the background, and you could see the date on it. And so it seems like the photos were taken around the 25th of July this year. So these photos are like almost 4 months old. And the photos themselves, they look like fairly finished products. There's a few of them on the bench there, so they've obviously got mass sort of prototype manufacturing in place. So it could be that we're not that far away from an official announcement, at least. But anyway, for the audio listeners, I'll describe the headset as best as I possibly can. So the headset features a head strap which resembles the Vive Deluxe audio strap in that it's got like a big cushioning bit at the back and a ratchet system at the back so you can tighten it onto your face. It's also got some built-in headphones that sit on your ear. They don't look like the over-ear ones that we've got on the Vive Pro. They look more like the Oculus Rift ones, which is good.
It's really interesting that they've kind of abandoned with this model anyway. They've abandoned the Pro construction I wonder if that's responding to the fact that the headset wobbles like crazy.
It does wobble like crazy. You're right.
It's very bulky as well.
But the cushion on the back of this headset, it has this like kind of mottled grey material on it. And when you look at the prototypes that have been sent out recently of the Knuckles, it uses exactly the same material on the Knuckles controllers. So it makes it even more credible.
That's Half-Life 3 confirmed right there.
Boom.
Wow, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, it did.
Oh my god.
So the headset on the front of it features two front-facing cameras, which are located at the front, bottom, either side of the headset. And then if you look really closely and you zoom into the images, you'll actually see really small circles dotted around the front and sides of the headset. And that's, of course, for the tracking. Very similar to like the Vive and the Vive Pro, it's going to be using base station tracking by all accounts. Because there was some speculation that these two front-facing cameras would utilize inside-out tracking, but it certainly doesn't seem that way because these little dots wouldn't make sense otherwise. So that's a really interesting fact. The other really interesting part of the design is that the front of the headset above the two cameras features like a rectangular recess with a USB 3 port attached to it on the side, and it looks exactly the same shape as a Leap Motion. Like most of us here experimented with Leap Motion when the Rift first came out without even touch controllers, because it had this hand tracking technology that worked super well, had some really cool polished demos that you could check out. But unfortunately, when touch came out, Leap Motion kind of just faded into the background, and then it's not really been used that much since then. But this could be really interesting if Valve is saying, well, you know, our headset is really going to utilize some Leap Motion features and use hand tracking. So that's my best guess. It could be something else completely, but I would be surprised if I was wrong on that one.
Could be a soundbar. It might just be like a standard, you know. I'm just joking. Sorry, it's a horrible joke.
It would be weird if they have knuckle controllers, right? No. Knuckle controllers and Leap Motion.
Yeah, of course. No, it makes sense. Like they would use both. Like you know, I would be surprised if we don't get a bundle, but I'll talk about that more in a bit.
All right, cool.
In terms of the headset itself, like in terms of like inside the lenses look almost identical shape to the ones on the Vive Pro. So if I just show you quickly on camera now, you'll be able to see that they're kind of they've got this circle, and then they've got a cutout here where your nose is, and they look exactly the same on this Valve prototype. Yeah. So very similar, but they do look a bit bigger. So that could mean that it could have a higher resolution, and it could have a higher field of view also. But we don't know that for sure just yet. Looking at the bottom of it, it does have adjustable IPD, so that's all built in, but that's pretty standard nowadays in terms of headset design. And then when we've got an image of the headset without the front plate on, showing the PCB itself, it does actually have a Valve logo on it, giving the rumor even more credibility, I think, in my mind. But I think the news is actually really exciting, and for me, I was kind of surprised by it, but I'm super excited by it as well, because you know, we know that they were developing the Knuckles. Now that they're developing a headset as well, and during this article, they sort of mentioned a rumor that there would be some first-party software for it as well, in terms of like a Half-Life game. Of course, we've got no images or anything to back that claim up, but it has been 2 years since Valve have made a VR bit of software. You know, the lab was made over 2 years ago now, and it would make sense that they've been developing something behind the scenes to go alongside the hardware and do what Nintendo does. You know, they make this amazing hardware, then they make first-party software to show off the hardware to its best potential, and then they kind of lay the foundations to say, developers, this is what you can achieve with our system, go and do it yourself now.
Well, the only difference could be is that they will like sell it again, and someone else is gonna make the headsets, like HTC did with their first, live prototype.
Yeah, but it certainly seems that they're making the Knuckles themselves, right? From what we've seen so far.
They're prototypes, so they are not for sale until they are ready, right?
Yeah. But I mean, Valve does have a history in making hardware. I mean, they made the Steam Link, the Steam controller, and basically both the Vive controllers and the Knuckle controllers are like remappings of the Steam controller. The reason why they use a trackpad is because it's so successful in the Steam controller. So in that way, Valve does have a history in making hardware. But to be honest, I'm a little bit less excited about the hardware than I am about possible Valve software, which I still think is a little bit more interesting for me, mostly because the things that I see on the hardware I do not find that interesting. I mean, if it's a higher resolution, cool. If it's a more field of view, cool as well. But it's not really like, how would I say, like really new technology as I would expect from something coming from Valve, like for example the knuckle controllers or the Steam Link or the Steam controller. It's like relatively new things that they're trying out in hardware. I saw people also saying online that it might be like because there's a weird leak to have it right now, right before the holiday season, so that it's maybe done to like stop Oculus Quest from like selling as much as possible, because people are now saying, oh, that might be a headset coming from Valve, I'm going to hold my money, which is a valid strategy. But there were also some leaks from Oculus this week, which I also found a little bit more interesting than the one that I saw from Valve, which was the patent that they released for possible eye tracking. So there's a lot of going on in the VR industry in general, and I do not find this headset, with the things that I've seen right now, the most interesting piece of hardware.
I think the best thing about it, though, is the fact that it's just more competition for the marketplace. And I think
true.
It's amazing right now. I feel like we're in this amazing time right now that we're almost talking about a new headset every other week, that's coming to the marketplace. And I think that's exciting. It's confusing, albeit for consumers, especially that are new to VR. I think it's very confusing. But I think it's great that we're seeing this step up in that a lot of people want to throw their hat in the ring, get involved in the market and make it a little bit more competitive, because what that does is it grows the industry and then drives down prices for everyone in terms of consumers, and then more developers are going to be excited about developing games for these platforms as well. So I think it works well for everyone in the long run. But of course, like you, I'm more excited about the prospect of Valve bringing out a game, because the thing is, if they say, let's just take this hypothetically, if they said, right, just before Christmas, they dropped a headset with Knuckles and base stations and like Half-Life VR that used the Knuckles in such a way that you couldn't have that experience unless you bought the Knuckles with the Vive, for example.
I'll buy 3 of those headsets, even though I don't really I'm that excited about them.
That's exactly the thing. Like, PC gamers have been waiting for a Half-Life game like for a century almost, it's crazy how long we've been waiting for this. So,
but of course, Half-Life is probably like becoming like the little gem that every PC gamer wants. But if it's any VR game coming from Valve, it's gonna be amazing. It can be even like a completely new series. But if it comes from one of the biggest game studios in the world, then it's epic.
I think what's going to be interesting is that they could be the ones that set the standard of how VR should be played.
Absolutely.
And that people are like, whoa, the way I can touch things, how I can play these games, how I move. Maybe they found a new locomotion system that we never thought of before. Like, there's so many things they could innovate on by just blasting out a game that is like super solid. So I think they don't even need the IP itself. They just need to show that they understand how VR works. Because let's be honest, even after this year, people have still not figured out how games need to be played. I have never played a title that is, let's say, almost close to perfection. Well, on a pancake screen, I have played a few games where I'm like, well, this is super, super neat.
Yeah.
What I would say as well is, like, for people that are still doubting, should I buy a headset now? Should I wait for next year? I think my advice, get in now, because there's going to be some awesome prices for the holiday season. Don't wait for like new hardware, because you'll be waiting always for new hardware. And I think that the amount of content that there is at the moment with the Rift and with the Vive is going to be awesome content to keep you pleased for like many years to come. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Like you say, if you haven't owned a VR headset up until now, you've got such a huge library of games to go through that are all stand out and great. And like you say, with it being Black Friday at the end of the month, hold off for that and wait. Whether you want a PSVR or a Rift or a Vive or a Windows MR headset, that is going to be the best time to get the best deal. So hold off for then.
I think so.
But I wouldn't wait any longer, because like you say, you're always going to be chasing the next bit of hardware otherwise. Because I think especially next year, we're going to see a lot more of this, more headsets being released, a lot more innovation. So just get it now and then upgrade later on.
Just to throw my hat in the ring on this leak, I generally don't like leaks. The reason being that I'm a kind of guy who, I like a good press release where the company's big secret or whatever comes out in the way they expected, like Diablo Immortal. So I tend to prefer a kind of a structured release as opposed to leak season. And this looks suspicious to me. The fact that they've got a Valve logo on the circuit board, maybe that's something they've done before. But the photography here, I mean, it's not that this couldn't be faked. I'm not saying it is. I think it seems quite reasonable in terms of where a product team would be pushing, particularly if they had first-party software to package with it. I'm totally into picking this up and trying it out. I'm still quite annoyed at leak season because that seems to be where we are right now. And it's like, I'd rather just have the companies come out with this information when they're ready. And, if it is true that somebody at Valve leaked these photos, like a couple of years ago, there was some student or something getting a tour and leaked some photos of development studio screens and stuff. It's like, you have a privileged role. So, like, feck you if you take photos and go leak them on the internet. If this is a corporate, corporate v corporate, oh, we're going to leak this, just like, album artists and that do for the music industry, fine. I'll accept it then. But for an individual to kind of do this, like, sorry, feck you, dude, or gal, whoever did this, because, you're opening my Christmas present early, so feck you for that. And, I think you should not do this. You're a bad employee. So anyway, there you go. That's where I stand on it.
I love your standpoint, Zim. But the best thing is, like, the photos have a date and time stamp. So if it's like a super secret headquarters, they're going to have, like, RFID tags to get in and out of the place. So they're going to know exactly who did it.
It's funny that when there's an article on TechCrunch, people are like 50-50 on it. They doubt if it's real or not and what's going on. But when Upload is pushing it, almost 90% of the people believe it.
But that's also because there's pictures, of course.
I felt like recently, looking at Upload, from the articles I've seen and the titles they use, they seem to go a little bit more full in on the titles they use on their articles, and if they are real or not, I don't know. But with this one, they went like full in.
Yeah.
By putting Half-Life in your title and everything.
Yeah.
And they said they have a source, an anonymous one. Yeah, but that's something you can always say.
But like you said, they've got the credibility to have these images to back up their claim. Whereas
but on the
and
other side,
what is a Half-Life game? What is a Half-Life? Is it going to be a demo? Is it going to be like you can explore some things in like an escape room style, or we gonna update our Steam app where you can explore? You don't know what it is. A Half-Life game can be a lot of things.
The thing is, if you are if people believe your website, then you can also make use out of that from time to time and kind of balance that out. So I don't really know. I think I honestly, we know that Valve said a few times, also this year, that Half-Life is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So why would it be with VR? It could be a demo.
He said
Half-Life 3.
Half-Life 3 is not going to happen. That's what he said. But we don't know what else is happening in that ecosystem of being Half-Life. I mean, technically,
of course.
There are so many
games. It could also be a spin-off
of
what they made before,
or a prequel, or they skip Half-Life 3 and they go to Half-Life 4, and you don't know what's gonna happen.
Alex's fashion simulator, and I can tell Mike is itching to move, and we should move to the next subject.
It's the only thing I wanted to say with this is that when you look at other websites like Road to VR, VR Focus, etc., they have a different approach on what this is, a little bit calmer in a way, where this is like so, of course, hyped that you can, get everyone on board straight away. But I just noticed that every website has a different approach on how they bring this news and how far they want to go with that too.
I just want to say one more
thing.
I'm
joking. Just continue.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, it's the same with us as content creators. To get attention, you have to, push things a little bit to the boundaries a little bit, to get those clicks, get those important clicks.
Clickbait.
But anyway, let's talk about Shadow VR. And like I said earlier, the marketplace seems to be hotting up right now. Headsets being announced almost every other week, and now we've got another headset a headset called Shadow VR, and it's going to be made by a company called Shadow Creator. Now, there are, we don't really know of them that well here in the West, but they're quite a big company based in China, based in Shanghai. And they announced this week at a HTC event that they're going to be creating a 6 Degrees of Freedom standalone VR headset that's going to use the Vive Wave platform. So what HTC have done is they've created a platform called Vive Wave and basically allowed other hardware manufacturers to base a headset around their platform. So their platform will include like Viveport and like a menu system, a bit like using a version of Android, for example. They've basically allowed that to be accessible for these companies. So they're just building the hardware around it, don't have to worry about the software. But this new Shadow VR headset, like I say, is kind of competition for the Quest. And, we've got this Shadow VR headset, we've got the Quest, we've got the Vive Focus now with 6 Degrees of Freedom controllers edition, and we've got the Lenovo Mirage Solo soon coming with 6 Degrees of Freedom controllers now. So there's a lot of competition hotting up in this market space of like being the standalone headset. But in terms of specs, it comes with 2 6 Degrees of Freedom's controllers, but with touchpads rather than thumbsticks. Personally, I prefer thumbsticks, but it is what it is. It has the same Snapdragon 835 processor as the Quest, but it has a lower resolution LCD display over the Quest's OLED display.
You got to balance it somehow, right? Because they're probably not getting the same image processing that we know the Quest has. So you got to make a trade-off.
And it's minimal. It's minimal. Like the Shadow uses a combined resolution of 2560 by 1440, whereas the Quest uses 2880 by 1600. So the difference is going to be marginal in terms of real world use. But it has the same 110 degrees field of view as the Quest. I know we had some confusion over that in a previous episode of the show. It's not 95 degrees. It is 110 degrees horizontal field of view, which is the standard that most use. But interestingly enough, you can buy this headset from today, right now. You can go and buy this, and it's the same price as the Quest, $399 US with worldwide shipping.
I'm gonna say two things. One, it feels rushed. Like there was no one expected this. Like it feels like they just brought out a headset real quick. And then the other thing that I want to say is, who came up with that name? Shadow VR. What is it going to be like the next iteration? Like Ninja VR, Shogun VR. Like what? Yeah. Like it's not a good name. I don't like it.
Sounds like a gaming.
We live in the shadow of the Oculus Quest.
Yeah.
Have they thought about that? No,
nice. So. I think the problem is that it doesn't seem like this headset is for the Western market. It seems like this is for the Chinese market right now. Same with the Vive Focus. Yeah. Because right now we don't really have an ecosystem in place here in Europe and in the UK and in the Western world in the US for like a storefront that has all the applications. I understand that Viveport is thriving in the Asian market. Great. And I think that's probably where this product is best placed right now. Whether the HTC can bring, this mobile Viveport platform over to the West is another thing. But really, that's what it needs.
Is that a smart strategy to focus on the Asian market only then?
I would imagine right now it's a bigger market than the US and the rest of the world combined, for sure.
But at the same time, a lot of the Asian market goes to the US to buy American products. So.
Yeah, but particularly hardware and stuff like that, it's the other way around for sure. Yeah, and HTC are a Chinese company after all, so it does kind of make sense. But it kind of does seem interesting to what they're doing with their kind of idea of how to tackle this problem is to create a software platform and then give that out to hardware manufacturers, because then you're spreading your wings even further. Your platform even further without really having to put all the effort in terms of hardware. They can just focus on their own headset. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next year or so in terms of these standalone headsets.
Is the Oculus Store actually available in the Asian markets?
Well, it's a really good question, actually, because I only know the comparison with the Xiaomi, which is the comparable product to the Oculus Go, which is their headset. And that does have its own dedicated store, which is completely separate from the Western store. But in terms of Rift, I really don't know, actually, and it's a really good question.
So if you own an Oculus Rift, because Steam, you won't be able to get there, right?
You're not going to be able to get Steam on this standalone headset. No, it uses Viveport actually as the store.
But can you, for example, in China, because they use a lot of like VPN blockers and stuff like that, can you for example get like a Steam product there even?
FReality would
yeah,
now
so
like
the Vive is like a huge success in China as well, I would say.
But I mean software-matic. There's maybe someone in the chat knows that. Can you download and install Steam on for example a Chinese PC and then download products there? That's why I'm wondering.
For sure, because I've seen Chinese keys getting sold too on the market.
So what is then the goal of like separating the market? Like why is Viveport, for example, only available or only popular in China if they also have, for example, a Steam?
Because Viveport, like Oculus, it's going to be a separate ecosystem for their mobile platforms. Like it's going to be different because like they've got Viveport for Vive, so that has all the PC VR content, but they're also going to have Viveport for mobile. So just like the
mobile,
Oculus Store,
I get that.
So it has two separate ecosystems for different platforms. Yeah.
I still think that the point that you made earlier, Mike, is true, and I'm getting a little bit exhausted with the number of iterations of nuanced headsets coming out. It's something that actually kind of springboards off of what Palmer said originally 2014, 2015, where he said that there'll be this kind of this brewing pot where you end up with a standard that's just an amalgamation of all the offerings that are out there, because that's where developers get forced to develop for, whatever the center point is. And I think first party, like what we just talked about with the Valve headset potential, that's where you actually get the kind of expansive growth that takes you off into a different direction. So it's interesting to see it, but I'd like to see more unique selling points on these headsets.
We got Eric in the chat saying that Steam and Oculus Home you can't use in China, and Vive uses Viveport in China. So that brings me a bit back to my question. Like, if you can't use the Oculus Store in China, what is the alternative then? If you own an Oculus Rift,
you have the Xiaomi. I don't know about the Rift, but the Go, obviously they have the Xiaomi store.
Buy the Rift from there. There's not even you don't get advertised by this Rift. Because if the government doesn't approve a product, then it will also not be advertised there.
So maybe they don't use.
They got a really hard wall. I mean, if you know about
of course
the U.S.'s wall. I mean, China's had a digital wall around the boundaries of China for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's a very censored environment, and
that's why I'm wondering like what the point was of like if you make several storefronts, why not try to like go to like the biggest market, which is everyone, and just try to include it there? Why focus on just a single part?
Because I think the market in Asia is like up to grabs for HTC right now. There's almost no one else operating there.
Because Oculus is just not there. But what if that's why I find it a weird strategy. Because if Oculus, takes the entire Western market, which they're on their way of doing, they're getting the best hardware releases, they're getting the best software. Then if they become so big that eventually they make a different sort of app in collaboration with a Chinese company, then they would overtake that market as well, because they have
on the other side, the success you book in China and the experience you build from that is going to be very useful in actually the Western market, So I don't think they're in a hurry, and they don't have to, because we're still at the start of what VR is going to be. And I think personally, if you hear the stories from China and how many people own a headset and how standard it already becomes there compared to here in America, we have a long way to go. A long way to go.
Yeah. But I think
at the same time, they use a lot of different products. For example, Facebook, they also don't have it in China. YouTube is a different version. They don't use YouTube. So it always needs to be like a Chinese company. So in a way, that is a big market, but at the same time, it does feel very limiting, because you only target a certain kind of people.
It's just separate markets, they're completely separate ecosystems almost, the US and China definitely. But the issue, I think the main issue with all these products is, I think, it's great that we're getting more headsets, but we just need more compelling games to play on these headsets, because if we don't have any games, we've said before, you just have a lump of plastic there that isn't very useful.
But also the interests are completely different, because if you look at like the interests of China, I don't know if you guys ever like played any like Chinese games or like looked like Chinese movies, they're completely different from any of the Western kind of things that you usually play or watch.
Yeah, I know what that feels like because I just played. I don't know if any of you guys have spotted. There's a game called Zone of the Enders 2, which was released on PSVR, and a friend of mine who's a big fan of that kind of stuff, big robots and all that, gave it to me. But playing it, I would challenge any of you to try it because anyone who has VR legs should be the only people trying this game. It is like literally, if you've ever watched like some proper anime and seen something like Gundam Wing or any of those shows, like the amount of erratic, like instantaneous based switching that happens in that for switching targets and slicing, it's insane. So I'm with Rowdy. The content itself is very different, but I do think for that market with 1.3 billion people, that's
definitely
Zuckerberg's target,
definitely.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Get
of
a
course.
billion into VR.
Just get only the Chinese people in.
Exactly.
Plus, by the way, things that are usually popular in China slowly also fly over to our, society.
I'm still waiting
So if
for a
something becomes
Belgian
hip
K-pop
there,
band.
then, well, not only
Maybe you
that,
can
but
start it, Rowdy.
if you
Yeah.
can put your product in, in the Asian market, that's usually a very good start of a bigger,
We should definitely put out a job posting for an Asian correspondent because we could use some
Well,
insight
no,
into that
exactly.
market.
Every time, honestly, every time I talk about the Chinese market and VR wise, I feel like I have to go there sometimes, and I really think about going there for a while so I can talk to people and see hey, what's going on, because we're talking about something we don't understand and we don't know what's going on. It's so freaking popular there that you would be amazed. As I said before, a couple of weeks ago we had this event. There were so many people there. It's crazy. I've never seen that before. So there are so many cool things.
You should just get a Chinese girlfriend, Nathan. Just
That'll
do
do
that.
it.
I mean, my brother is going a lot to China because his girlfriend and her family are living there in Beijing. And every time I hear these stories of what VR, what kind of companies are there, and he went, for example, to Carnage Chronicles, the devs of that, they are based in Beijing and they work from there. And there's so many arcades that they have there with VR. So many projects going on. It's crazy. It's seriously
definitely
crazy.
go. You should definitely go.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe do some
interesting.
Wear a
some
GoPro.
documentaries there.
Please wear a GoPro on your
We-
chest level and just record that the whole trip.
we got some information from Brian Foster, who said that Valve has partnered with Perfect World as a Chinese publisher to officially bring the Steam store to China in June 2018. So that should have already happened, apparently.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks for the update, dude.
Neat.
So let's quickly round up the show then with some final news about Beat Saber coming to PS in VR, and it needs to be on as many platforms as possible in my mind because I think it is a system seller. But we've got an official date this week of the release of Beat Saber for PSVR, and that's going to be on the 20th of November. Now, interestingly, a lot of people were super happy about it, of course, but then there were some people that weren't happy about it either. And that is because it's going to feature a new campaign mode and 5 new songs, some modifiers, some new sabers, and a practice mode that are going to be exclusive for the time being to PSVR.
So smart, so smart.
So
So
smart.
it's
so
almost like
smart.
we knew this was going to happen. But PC VR owners are of course, up in arms about it because they're going to be missing out on these new official tracks. But the Beat Saber devs did state via Twitter, don't worry, PC VR users, they will be coming soon to PC VR, but you're just going to have to wait a little while.
But
It's modded. People are gonna download the
exactly.
tracks and gonna make the exact version and import it into PC anyway.
This is
So
my
what
point.
are you worried about?
This is my point. Yeah, exactly. The PC VR community have modded Beat Saber, and the PSVR users aren't ever going to get that.
No.
You're not going to ever be able to have custom tracks, custom map tracks, lighting mods, different
I give it 2
sabers.
days. 2 days for it to get modded.
it's kind of silly. I mean, you these PlayStation VR users get just a few more songs. Well, on PC they have every song they could ever dream of. They could even create it. On PlayStation you can't do that, and then they are still, having the balls to even, complain about that. I'm surprised.
That sounded a bit like Donald Trump. We got every song we ever dreamed of.
That sounds
that
exact.
one.
true. Yeah, but
Wow.
yeah.
But I'm super happy.
It's not fake.
I'm super happy that it is coming to PSVR because I think it's a great game. It's a great platform. PSVR is a great platform.
Great game.
And the thing is as well, because it's going to be launching, in a couple of weeks' time, 20th of November. Now they can just focus development on the Quest.
But
that's what I want.
The other thing is, like, whenever someone releases a game like that, like when you know what it's done in the PC market, right? What's going to happen? PS4 and PSVR owners are just about to get a notch healthier. Like the amount of exercise that they're going to get. This is a game that I have, unabashedly played at like 3 and 4 in the morning. I came back from California and I literally like beat all the songs on Expert. It took me like 4 hours, like in the morning, like crazy hours. And it's just because it was like so good. It's just like, it's so good to just play that and feel great and get that achievement. And I'd revisit it any day. It's such a magic formula.
On the other side, when Carmack did his keynote at Connect, he was talking about a lot of people actually playing a lot of games that are physical seated. And today, when I was was scrolling through the Facebook group of Oculus, there was someone playing Pavlov just like seated. He was like laying down like this with his hand on his keyboard or something. And I don't know, like some people just play even Beat Saber seated, and that's fine. I think I would do that too after like 2-3 rounds. I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna play it seated, and that's cool. Because
I can imagine
surprised how many people just don't play it the way you think they.
No, you're totally right. Yeah, Nikki's got a total point. Like, especially console gamers, bunch of lazy bastards,
yeah, potato gamers, exactly.
You had a friend over today, right, Nathan? And you were demoing Beat Saber today, but he was getting like seriously into it by the
dude. Yeah. First I showed him like Beat Saber, and he played VR before, so it wasn't the first. It was the second time. And then I told him about Creed, and funny enough, he kind of looks like the character from Creed, the actor. So he was like looking at his arms. I was like, whoa, I got like this. These are my arms. So he was like totally immersed because he has the same skin color. And then he was playing the game, dude. Like he was like totally getting into it. It was like
he took his shirt off.
Yeah. He was like for the full experience, and like he knocked out like guys that are like at the end of the game that are pretty hard in the career mode. He just knocked them out in the first round. He was like slamming them so hard.
I saw that.
It's crazy, dude. Man, this guy, he was killing. He couldn't stop. He was like, "Whoa, hey, Rocky, I'm gonna fight you next." That's what he said. He was like totally going.
He's gonna feel that tomorrow for sure.
Oh yes.
But in terms of Beat Saber on PSVR, we don't have any official pricing just yet. But if it's likely going to be around $19.99 in British pounds, $24.99 in US dollars if you're interested. But yeah, like I say, it's coming out on the 20th. But that's the end of the show, really, in terms of all the information and news we've got. So if you've got any questions, now's a great time to put them in the chat, and I'll do a little recap of the times. So just a reminder, we go live every Saturday on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitch. Tune into the show live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in Central US. Also, check out the audio version, which is great to listen to on your commute, and that's available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on Anchor.
Yeah, we got a very good comment from Malon Rap. He says on the Beat Saber topic, why do people even care about the exclusiveness? Are you kidding me? PC users can literally mod this, you bunch of babies.
Exactly.
Yeah, they can make something they want. That's right. There was another one that was at the start of the show. I don't remember your name anymore. I'm sorry, but someone was asking what our number one Go title would be, because that person just bought one, and if we had any recommendations, just short.
Go on, Rowdy.
Virtual reality, or face your fears.
Yeah, mine's poker VR. Always, it's so easy. Just to anytime I feel like I don't have energy for anything else, I just sit at a table, play poker with a bunch of people from across the world. Love it.
Yeah, I would say just go out and get an Xbox One S controller, and then buy Kin,
Thumper.
Blaze Rush, and Hero Bound.
Thumper.
Those 3 games and Thumper. Those 4 games will keep you
Mike, you just took up our whole allotment. We're with one each.
Yeah,
Each.
one.
Okay,
Like,
one.
bam.
If there's one.
Hero Bound. I think that game's great.
Really?
Very
For me, for a one-time showing, it would be Face Your Fears.
What? Not Dread Halls? I think you can play Dread Halls on the go too.
Yeah, it's a cut down version. I would say the Dread Halls on the go is a little Yeah, you're again. It's similar to what I would say to Mike's Blaze Rush and Hero Bound example. I'd say those are both better on Rift than they are on.
Can you
Go.
poke creatures in the butthole on the go?
Probably not as effectively.
Yeah,
no.
but you could put your controller in there though.
So my recommendation is completely free. You just go into the Oculus, home thing, and then you play Boggle with your friend. Just invite him, and
if
it's
you have
super fun.
friends. If you're like me, and you really want to
if you have
game,
no
you need
friends,
to pay
then just
money.
play Dreadholes and cry in a corner, being scared of creatures.
Virtual
Do
reality.
not get your life partner into that Boggle game. That's all I'm saying. All right, my wife and I have already had fisticuffs over that feckin' thing. Her and her go, me and my go, and it like playing at that little table, and it's like, no, I'm done with this. That's it. I'm going upstairs.
It seems like that solution would just be cheaper to go out and just buy Boggle the board game.
There is a
Fair point.
There's another very good question. Maybe we should talk about this in the next show. But David is asking, when does the Oculus come to Brazil? And I heard that the Oculus Rift is not getting sold in Brazil at
Big
all.
market.
Because the
That's
shop
And if
owners
the-
are keeping them for themselves. Oh, no.
And devs who wanted to have one had to just ship them also to them because otherwise they. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good question. What countries still are
Are
not
excluded.
able to buy a headset? And
Yeah.
I mean, there are many out there, but Brazil, for example, is a surprise in a way, right? That you can't buy one there. So that would be a good topic for another time. But yeah, David, that's a good one. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, that is the end of the show. Hope you guys and girls have enjoyed this one. Have a great week in VR, and we'll see you on next week's episode. So until then, bye-bye for now.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye bye.